All right, we've all heard the promise, right? Smarter, more efficient tech is supposed to make our lives easier. But what if that very efficiency flips the script and creates a paradox that changes, well, everything? Today, we're going to dig into the really surprising connection between AI, efficiency, and yeah, our jobs.
I mean, you can't escape it. Everywhere you look, people are talking about AI, and there's this palpable anxiety in the air, this feeling that we're standing on the edge of some massive cliff when it comes to work. And for a lot of people, that feeling isn't excitement, it's just pure dread.
And really, it all just boils down to this one huge question. It's the same question people have asked with every big technological leap, from the printing press to the internet. But this time with AI, it just feels different, doesn't it? It feels way more personal.
So, this fear, it actually has a name. People call it the displacement narrative. And the idea is super simple. AI gets smarter, AI gets more efficient, and so it starts replacing us, one task at a time, until, poof, no more jobs. It sounds logical, right? It almost feels inevitable. But is it really what's going to happen?
Okay, but check this out, because here's where the story gets weird. Right now, in the middle of this massive AI boom, job postings for software engineers, the very people building this stuff, they're up 11% year over year. Now, if AI was just a replacement machine, you'd think that number would be going down, not up. So this little contradiction, that's our first clue that there's something much, much deeper going on here.
So to figure this puzzle out, we have to do something kind of crazy. We're going to hit pause on the world of silicon chips and AI servers. And we're going to travel back in time, back to the age of coal and soot and steam engines. Because, believe it or not, the key to understanding the future of AI might just be locked away in a 160-year-old paradox about coal.
So picture this. It's the 18th century. For ages, the best steam engine around is this thing called the Newcomen engine. Super important, but also a total gas guzzler, but for coal. It was just wildly inefficient. Then this guy James Watt shows up and designs a new engine that is way, way better. So much better, in fact, that by 1865, an economist named William Stanley Jevons looks at Britain's coal usage and realizes something really weird is going on.
Now, the logical assumption, what you and I would both think, is pretty simple, right? If every new steam engine is way more efficient and burns less coal, then obviously the country as a whole should be using less coal. It's just simple math.
But Jevons just blew that idea right out of the water. He basically said, nope, you've got it all wrong. It is a confusion of ideas. The very contrary is the truth. His big, crazy claim was that making engines more efficient wouldn't decrease coal use. It would actually make it go up. And here's the kicker. He was totally right. And this mind-bending idea became known as the Jevons paradox.
Okay, so how on earth does that work? How can getting better at using something lead to us using more of it? It seems to break the laws of logic. Let's break down exactly what's going on behind this paradox.
All right, so here's the textbook definition, more or less. The Jevons paradox is what happens when a new technology makes a resource so much more efficient to use that it effectively makes it cheaper. And because it's so much cheaper, people find all sorts of new ways to use it, and demand just skyrockets. So much so that in the end, we actually use more of the resource than we did before.
Let's walk through it with the steam engine. Step 1. Efficiency goes way up. Step 2. This makes the effective cost of steam power plummet. Suddenly, it's not just a niche, expensive thing anymore. And that's the key. Because it's cheap, people get creative. That low cost sparks a wave of innovation. Boom. You get factories powered by steam, locomotives crossing the country, steamships crossing the ocean. Suddenly, steam power is everywhere. And all those new uses combined mean the total demand for coal just goes through the roof, wiping out any savings from the efficient engines and then some.
Now, it's really important to know this paradox isn't like a universal law. It only kicks in for things with what economists call elastic demand. That's just a fancy way of saying demand can stretch a lot. For steam power, making it cheaper unleashed this tidal wave of new ideas and new uses. But it doesn't work for everything. Think about it. If the price of dinner dropped by 20%, you're not going to start eating 5 dinners a night, right? That's inelastic demand. It doesn't stretch. Okay, so coal, steam engines, what does any of this have to do with AI? Well, as it turns out, the connection is incredibly direct. We just have to swap out the resource.
See, the whole debate about AI and jobs really boils down to one question. Is AI a substitute for us, or is it a complement? The whole scary displacement narrative is built on the idea that AI is a substitute.
It's a machine that's coming to take your job. But what if the Jevons paradox applies here? What if AI is actually a complement, a tool that makes human work so much more efficient and therefore so much cheaper that we invent a million new things for people to do with it? Let's make this less abstract. Think about a piece of tech we all know, like Microsoft Office. Before Word and Excel were on every desktop, there was real concern that this kind of software would just wipe out entire categories of jobs, secretaries, bookkeepers, you name it. So let's ask the question, was Microsoft Office a substitute or was it a complement?
Yeah, with hindsight, the answer is a no-brainer. It was a massive complement. It didn't replace office workers. It basically gave them superpowers. Think about it, it automated all the boring, tedious stuff. And that dramatically lowered the cost of doing really complex things, like detailed financial analysis or creating polished presentations. It didn't destroy jobs, it completely transformed them and created new ones we couldn't have even imagined before.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, but AI is different. It's growing exponentially. And that's a fair point. But when you look at the actual data on how it's being used, a different picture emerges. Data from the St. Louis Fed shows that the daily use of AI in the workplace, it's actually growing at a pretty stable, linear rate, not a crazy rocket ship curve. And this highlights a super important point. A technology's capability can grow exponentially, but its adoption in the real world, that's a whole different story. It runs into friction. And what's that friction? Well, it's the real world. AI isn't some magic spell you cast from the cloud. It needs things. It needs ridiculously expensive computer chips. It needs gigantic, power-hungry data centers to live in. And then you've got all the human stuff, government regulations, big companies that are slow to change, and huge questions about who's liable when an AI messes up. All of these things act like a massive brake pedal on how fast jobs can actually be replaced.
In fact, you can literally see this physical footprint in the job numbers. Take a look at this. There's been a recent spike in hiring for construction jobs. And a big reason for that? We need people to build all those massive data centers we just talked about. So right there, you have the supposedly virtual world of AI creating very real, very physical jobs for people with hard hats and tool belts.
Okay, this all leads us to the final and maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a story about technology. It's a story about us. It's about human nature.
Let's go back in time one more time, to 1930. The famous economist John Maynard Keynes looked at all the amazing new technologies of his day, and he made this huge prediction. He said, productivity is going up so fast, by the time my grandkids are around, we'll all be working just 15-hour weeks. Now, he was spot on about the productivity gains, but about what we do with all that free time, he couldn't have been more wrong.
So why are we all still working? Why didn't his utopia happen? It came down to one simple thing. Keynes totally underestimated the elasticity of human wants. And here's how that works. It's a cycle. Technology makes things cheaper, which means we all have more money to spend. But we don't just buy more of the same old stuff. No, we invent completely new things to want. New industries pop up to sell us things we never knew we needed. Our goals get bigger. It's like 100 years ago, you just wanted a phone that worked. Today, you demand a supercomputer in your pocket that can shoot 4K video. It turns out our ability to want new things, it's basically endless.
And that really brings us full circle. It leaves us with one last big question. Maybe we've been asking the wrong thing all along. Instead of worrying about what jobs AI is going to take, maybe the better question, the more interesting, and if history is any guide, the more accurate question, is this. By making intelligence itself so cheap and abundant, what completely unimaginable new wants, new services, and new experiences will AI help us create next?